What do you think? That's the question Jesus asked his disciples in today's red letter lesson. It had to do with empire and taxation and exemption and maybe even tariffs. That's the focus today in the meeting house as we gather to consider life, politics, and Jesus. Thank you for joining us today, tuning in. I'm going to give a report on our campaign to raise $40,000 for the year. I'm going to give a tip of the hat to my new studio in my new house. I'm going to show you this. This hangs in my studio, John Prine, Oh Boy Records, blow up your TV. A phrase some of you know is from the famous song Spanish Pipe Dream. But let's start with life before we get into politics and the red letter lesson. And I want to say that we finally did it, my wife and I, after years of trying to decide what to do, moving back to Kentucky, staying in Georgia or rebuilding in Georgia, moving to North Carolina, where my brother David just relocated. We bought a house right here in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. It's a growing area on the north side of Greenville. The Reedy River that flows through Greenville in a very famous, beautiful park right in the center of the city, that river begins in our backyard. Along that river, from here to town, runs the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which is a rails to trails feature, just 2 blocks from our home. We have some interesting neighbors. I've written about that and published it in the newsletter. You can read it on the website. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, it was the second article, not the lead article this week. And I know some people never look beyond the lead article, but you can go back and read that if you want. I did post it on Facebook, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek article, not as serious as the empire rattling stuff that we sometimes talk about. So this week here in South Carolina, we're spending our time packing, painting, and planning what goes where. You know how it is when you move to a new house. Along the way, we've discovered some nice Christmas stuff hidden away in long stored boxes. You know how that is well. We put them up to celebrate the season. We won't be finished with all this by Christmas. But a new home always makes a terrific Christmas gift, don't you think? I don't do it much, but this year we've done it. So let's shift from life to politics. I want to thank you for your response to my presentation last week about the 7 Mountains Mandate. I heard from a good number of you. I have that book with me, and I'm glad to give it to anybody who wants to read it, which is my attitude toward almost all the books I review. Let me know if you're interested. I'll send it to you when I get around to it. That could be some weeks or months, but if you put a donation in with your request, it'll go in the mail the next day. Now, here is the word for today: remigration. Remigration. And here is the definition: a concept of ethnic cleansing by mass deportation of non-white minority populations, especially immigrants, sending them back to the place of their racial ancestry. I'm going to read that again. Remigration, a concept of ethnic cleansing by mass deportation of non-white minority populations, especially immigrants, returning to their place of racial ancestry. You're going to be hearing a lot about this word, and you've already been seeing it in action, as you know, as the federal administration has armed and empowered masked men and women to invade homes, bust car windows, and surprise mothers with children on their way to school. You've all seen the videos. every week. The president and his men state repeatedly that the people detained and sent to camps are criminals, the worst of the worst. This is a lie. They repeat it over and over. It is a persistent, pernicious lie. The vast majority of these corralled neighbors are hardworking, law-abiding people who came to the United States in search of a better life. You know what happened this week. I think it's been this week over the last few days. On December the 4th, that's 10 days ago, in Boston, Massachusetts, hundreds of people were lined up to take their oath of loyalty to be citizens to the United States. They'd been through the long, demanding process to become a citizen. It takes about 5 years, start to finish. The ceremony was held in the famous and influential Faneuil Hall, which is at the epicenter of all the revolutionary space in Boston. I've been there. I hope you have as well. It's a very inspiring place. But all of these people expecting to be sworn in as new citizens had no idea what was coming. Without warning, ICE agents swarmed the crowd and pulled out of the line people from 19 countries. These countries were deemed dangerous, not to these people and their children, but to the character and mission of the United States. Yes. A similar thing happened, I think, in Indianapolis. People swooped away at the very last minute before their citizenship ceremony. Normally, these citizenship ceremonies are very inspirational. You've seen them. There's a speech and people are welcomed. People are there with their families and friends. They're there. So many of them are dressed up. And then to be interrupted by ICE people because the people were pulled out of line because they were from countries that the president has deemed shithole places. I'm going to read you the list of those 19 countries. Tell me what you noticed about these 19 places. Haiti, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. I'm going to read that list again. Haiti, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Tell me what these countries have in common. They have people of color, shades of brown and black. Many are Muslim countries. Most are poor. Some are very troubled and dangerous. None are white, and only 2 are majority Christian. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong about all this. I do want to note something about Cuba. He calls it a shithole country. A few years ago, 2 families migrated from Cuba to the United States. Last night, their grandson won the Heisman Trophy. He's won every single award in collegiate football. He's the quarterback for the undefeated University of Indiana football team. They're the #1 team in the country, quarterbacked by an immigrant from Cuba. Take that, Donald Trump. This double action by Donald Trump, that is declaring some countries, some nationalities persona non grata, and seizing individuals and families as they prepare to become citizens, is a mean and cruel and desperate attempt to change the direction of our country. We are watching it in real time. He's trying to pull us back from our destiny and push us back into our history, into our past, into our white minority rule culture that mistreated natives, mistreated workers, especially slaves, women, and children. That is our past. When Trumpsters say, "Make America great again," they are referring to this white male European culture that has ruled this continent for too long. This is the history that Project 2025 and now the Department of Education does not want you to know or study. They don't want you to read about Native American history. They don't want you to know the truth about slavery or about the corporate mistreatment of workers and children, about our mistreatment of the environment, our pollution. They don't want you to know about all this. The truth is, from the beginning, America has been a country of immigrants, originally from Europe and then Latin America and Africa and Asia. It started out with white Christian immigrants from Europe, especially England and the British Isles. I'm a descendant of those immigrants. But we did battle with colored slaves, Indians, we called them colored natives, I should have said. Indians, we called them for centuries. Many were of Mexican or Latin origin, coming up from the South to settle in Florida, Texas, and California. For the last 200 years, we in the United States, we've received people from Asia while continuing to welcome refugees from Europe, Latin America, and Africa. But what has happened in the last 50 years? The white Christian population, people like me, has declined as a percentage of the whole. I want to show you a chart that illustrates this. The decline of white people scares the bejeebies out of some people. You can see the black population has stayed pretty much the same. The Asian population has doubled. The other population has tripled. The Hispanic population has doubled. And the white population has decreased from 76% in 1990, just 35 years ago. The white population was 76%, and now it is 58%. We are becoming the country that our founders envisioned. We are becoming the country that the Statue of Liberty envisions. But this change scares a lot of people. It's pushed them into the arms of Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, and other outright racist people in power now who are trying to push out of the country people of color. That's what's happening in the United States. They're going after non-citizens right now. They started off saying they were going after criminals, but no, that's never been the case. They're going after anybody who is not a citizen, including people with legal status here. They're revoking legal status as students, as workers, as refugees. They're revoking all of that. And then they're revoking the citizenship. They're trying to revoke the citizenship of naturalized citizens and deport them. I want to say that again. What they want to do is go back and take naturalized citizens and revoke their citizenship and deport them. I can tell you what's coming. Many people know what's coming. What they want to do is deport native-born citizens, anybody they don't like. This, my friend, is white Christian nationalism. It is an evil thing. This is what pushed Christianized Europe over the cliff. I mean, Christianized Germany over the edge, turned them into Nazis and autocratic race haters. You know something? They would deport Jesus if they could. Brown skin, another religion, critic of the empire, leader of his own movement, accountable only to God, leading a parade into the capital city. From the first to the last, the empire, the Roman Empire, and its lackeys did not like Jesus. They tried to kill him early on. They killed him later, crucified him. God made Jesus the Messiah, the Lord and Savior, but the empire killed him. He was considered a threat. He did not buy into their vision of human life or human community. And I want to say we get a glimpse of this in our question for today. This is question number 6 in our series. It's going to take us through the end of December. Do you remember these 8 questions? Let me read through them again. Number 1, why are you afraid? Number 2, Jesus said, these are all questions that Jesus asked the people around him. Number 2, do you believe I'm able to do this? What a great question. Number 3, who are my brothers? You remember the people came to Jesus, peeps came to Jesus and said, your mother and your brothers are here. And Jesus responded with this question, yeah, but who really are my brothers, my sister, my family, my people? And then the next question I dealt with, Jesus asked, the people were hungry, and he told his disciples to feed them, and they said, we don't have anything. And Jesus asked the question, how many loaves do you have? What do you have? Last week, we dealt with the famous question. Jesus asked the question, tell me what the people are saying about me. Who do they think I am? So they gave him a list of answers. And then Jesus said, but what do you think? Who do you say that I am? Today, we're going to deal with that very same question. What do you think? Next week, an equally wonderful question from Jesus when he asked the questions, what do you want? There are several times in the Gospels that Jesus asked this question. And finally, just before he went into Jerusalem for the last time, in an episode we're going to read through, he asked the question, why are you bothering this woman? That's going to be particularly interesting in the era of Epstein, as we are in right now. Jesus used questions all the time in his ministry, and so should we. People ask him questions, and Jesus asked questions of his disciples and of people in general. Questions stir the imagination and the intellect. Questions push us to explore and explain things. Questions acknowledge that we don't know all we need to know. Questions pull others into the process of seeking clarity and searching for truth. Questions honor the independence and intelligence of other people. Questions say this, you matter. Your opinions matter. Your judgment matters. Questions say this to everybody. You have a brain, use it. Think your own thoughts. Make your own judgments. Shape your own mental and spiritual world. What do you think? What are you thinking? I'm going to read this gospel story, okay? In Matthew 17, chapter 17, verses 24. Let me read the story and make some comments about it. After Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, small little village on the northern side of the Sea of Galilee. I've been there many times. anybody that takes a pilgrim tour to Israel goes to Capernaum because it has one of the most beautiful synagogues from, I think it's the 2nd century of the Christian era. So in Capernaum, the tax collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" "He sure does," they replied. But when Peter came into the house and evidently told what had happened, Jesus was the first one to speak, and he asked this question: "What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth, or we might say the feds, collect their taxes and their duty and tariffs? Do they collect it from their own people or from others?" Boy, if that's not the most contemporary, relevant question that we could possibly come up with. Jesus and his disciples were talking about the same thing we talk about, these tariffs and our taxes. Simon Peter said, "Well, they collected from other people." It's unclear whether he means somebody other than their blood relatives or somebody from another country or people who are traveling or immigrants. And Peter said they collected from others. Then Jesus said to him, "Then the children," quote, "the children are exempt," that is, the people of the household. But Jesus said to them, and here is a strange little piece of what we would call magic. We don't want to cause offense by not paying taxes. So go to the lake. The Sea of Galilee was really a lake. Throw out your line, your fishing pole. Take the first fish you catch. Open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to the tax collectors for my tax and for yours. Now, we know from other episodes in the life of Jesus that he believed in paying taxes. You know, he famously said, "Render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, give to God what belongs to God." So the issue here was partly, should we pay taxes? And Jesus said essentially yes. But I'm really interested more broadly in the question that Jesus asked, not specifically the issue that precipitated the question. Jesus asked his lead disciple, Simon Peter, this question: "What do you think?" Now, I don't believe that that was just a rhetorical device. I think Jesus was interested in what Simon Peter thought, partly as a teaching and training tool. He's trying to get Simon Peter to think, and I might say, think outside the box. Think in ways that were stretching his imagination and his intellect. You know, as a religion scholar myself, as a pastor and a preacher, I know that this is not the way that religion speaks most of the time. Mostly religion, not only ours, but religions around the world, religion thinks it has the answers. They're not interested in the questions. Our own tradition, Christianity, is bad about this. We have all the answers. Jesus has all the answers. We put those answers into sermons and books and what are called catechisms. You know what a catechism is? We don't use them much anymore, but it's a series of questions and answers that were to be recited and even memorized. You ask a question, what is the purpose of life? Or how does God save? And there's an answer given. That is, we want to teach people the answers because we have the answers, because God told us the answers. Or better, God told men a long time ago what the answers are. These old men a long time ago put these answers in confessions and creeds. And now we're supposed to recite these creeds and accept what they thought as God ordained and as everlasting truth. This is what it means to be a Christian, is to accept what these people thought about life and God and death, salvation, sin, justice. I don't think so. I don't like this way of construing what it means to be a Christian. That is, you know all the right answers to things. Think about Jesus. One of his favorite phrases was, "You've heard it said, but I say unto you." That is, this is what the old people taught you. But I'm here to tell you what I think. The Sermon on the Mountain is a summary of the teaching of Jesus over and over again. In Matthew's version of it, he says to this, "You've heard it said, you've heard it taught, you've heard these answers, but I've got some questions. I have my own way of thinking about these things." Can we position Jesus as a free thinker? Jesus had his own opinions. He's not bound by the traditions of his own inherited religion. Any preacher could illustrate this many times over. You could even. You know many of the stories where Jesus said, "You've heard it said here, but I'm telling you, I think we ought to do this." Our story illustrates this. Simon Peter, what do you think? What is your judgment on this matter? What is your opinion? What do you think we should do or say or be or believe? I like Jesus as the question-asking man from Galilee. I like his pattern of asking questions and soliciting opinions. I like his openness to the Spirit of God and also to the judgment of others. You know, I know a lot about my audience this week. I know many of you. I've been a pastor and a teacher for some of you in my long pastoral tenure in Indiana, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, North Carolina. I know you represent a range of opinions about almost everything. And you know I can be very opinionated. In almost every church, I've had people who took issue with my opinions, my judgment, my thoughts, and left the church. That's not unusual, not just for me, but for many ministers. This happened to Jesus. Early on, the crowds were thick, you know. But as Jesus' teaching and preaching got more demanding about taking up your cross and surrendering your own life, as it got more difficult, people quit. At one point, Jesus gathered his closest confidants and asked, "Are you going to quit also?" The flip side of this, people can make up their own mind. You have a brain, use it. Decide what you think. What do you think? That is the question of Jesus to his disciples, to you and to me. What do you think? Use your brain, use your soul, your experience, your knowledge. You reach your own conclusions. You know that there is a very familiar fourfold pattern to discerning things in the Christian tradition. We call it the Wesleyan quadrilateral. To reach judgment on something, use scripture, tradition, what wise people have thought about it, your own reason, your own experience. I should do a whole series on those four things sometimes, don't you think? But I'm running out of time today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting this ministry. Our goal is $40,000 this year. We've already spent $37,000. And we have received in your gifts $31,947.19. That's pretty exact. Somebody else keeps track of that, not me. But everybody's going to have to give a little for us to reach our goal by the end of the year. Can we do it? We're right at 32,000. Everybody's going to have to give a little, and somebody is going to have to give a lot. That could be you. Nevertheless, I carry on with little or with a lot, in good times and bad times, when we agree and when we don't, when we have the answers, when we don't have the answers, we carry on. I hope you will as well. God bless you today. God give you questions to ask that'll stir your mind and your soul. It's better to have questions with no answers than answers that don't allow questions. That's my thought. From the meeting house, where we talk about life, politics, and Jesus, I am Dr. Dwight A. Moody, your host and your friend. Hope you have a very good day.